Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1065B, and today's date is September 2nd, 2016, and the title of the episode is The New World Order's Secret Global Court Will Rule Over the People and Governments. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we know for a very long time the government, the elite, the 1%, the central bank, they want control of the world. I mean, we all realize this at this point. This is their main goal, is to control governments, to control the population, to reduce the population when it gets too big because it gets out of control, doesn't work in their system. And they need to do this in many different ways. Now, when we think of a one world government, we think, oh, we're going to go around and these elite, these central bankers, these neocons, what they're going to do is they're going to remove all the governments of the world. They're going to create just one government that will sit in some location and they will control the lands. Well, maybe that's not how they're planning it. Maybe they're planning something a little different. Most likely it'll be covert. And maybe governments won't even realize they're being controlled. I mean, in some respect right now, they are controlled by the central banks because what they do is they put these countries into debt and then they tell the countries what to do. But that's not enough because that deals with the financial aspects of the country. What happens if they're able to control the law? What happens if they're able to control the outcome of lawsuits and control what the people can do in these countries? Maybe that's what they mean by a one world government. Yes, the countries can still have their governments, but they're there as showpieces. Just like the president in the United States. We know that the elite, the neocons, the shadow government, the central bankers, they're really running the show. They're calling the shots. The president today is the showpiece. Some presidents go along with them. Other presidents have to be removed by maybe assassination. And then we have this Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TTP, the TPP, the TTIP, which we hear a lot about, and it's done in secret, of course, because it can't be transparent if you want to take over the world. It has to be done in secret. And we know a lot of countries, I think there's the third European countries that's saying absolutely no to this deal. But when we look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership, first of all, we know it's not a trade deal. Remember, all the titles that these government employees give these bills, they're always the opposite. So it's not a free trade deal. It's nothing like that whatsoever. And what we're really looking at is a way for these individuals to consolidate, grow, and protect their wealth, to control nations. And to do this, they would need to remove the sovereignty of each country. They'd have to remove what the governments can do, what their court systems can do. And back in the day when NAFTA was born, something was created. It was called the Investor State Dispute Settlement System, ISDS. And it is perhaps the most nefarious and objectionable aspect of NAFTA and this new TPP, TTIP deal. It is a shadow court system which will be used to accomplish the following for those individuals, those people who want to have a one world government, really. They would eliminate sovereign risk from their investments, earn money by scouring the world for potential ISDS opportunities and then speculating on them, escape prosecution from criminality on a global basis and remove the ability of other governments to crack down on what they're doing. Basically, control each country. It would remove the ability of the governments of other countries to do anything. So imagine a court that rules the world. So this would be a one world government court system that basically tells other countries what to do. So imagine a private global supercourt that empowers corporations to bend countries to their will. Let's say a nation tries to maybe prosecute a CEO who is corrupt or, something like that. Imagine that a company could turn this supercourt and sue the whole country for daring to interfere with its profits, demanding hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars as retribution. Imagine that this court is so powerful that nations often must heed its rulings as they came from their own supreme courts with no meaningful way to appeal them. Well, when you think about this, they can control each country. It would be a one world government. And of course, they would say, no, it's not one world government. It's each country has their own government. But each government doesn't have the power to do anything. The shadow court system, the global court system, really rules the world. So imagine that if this court system placed penalties that were so crushing, so harsh, that some nations dare not risk a trial, just because of fear that they might get hit with billions upon billions of dollars worth of penalties. Well, you don't have to imagine. It's already here. Now, this system that we've been talking about, it is operating behind closed doors in office buildings, conference rooms, and cities around the world. And it is known as the ISDS. And we can see that this system is written into the international trade and investment systems, including NAFTA, and of course the TPP. And we know that Congress must soon decide whether to ratify it. And we realize that countries around the world, they're actually reading this and they're saying absolutely not. The governments of these countries would have no power. We won't be able to have any type of say in what goes on. And this court system will actually dictate to us what we can and cannot do, or we are penalized. So when we look at this system that these individuals want to put onto each one of these countries and here in the United States, it is again not to benefit the people. It is to benefit the elite, the neocons, the central banks, the corporations. Now this system is very secretive. It's not possible to know the total number of ISDS cases right now. But lawyers in the field say that the number of cases, they are increasing. And we know about 700 publicly known cases across the last half century. More than 10 were filed just last year. And Chief Justice John Roberts has warned that the ISDS arbitration panels hold the alarming power to review a nation's laws and effectively annul the authoritative acts of its legislature, executive, and judiciary. ISDS arbitrators, he continued, can meet literally anywhere in the world and sit in judgment on a nation's sovereign acts. So think about this for a second. When you hear a one world government, a new world order, they are trying to put this into play right now, under our noses, covertly. This is why Obama wants the TPP, the TTIP passed so badly. This would set the stage for a one world government without anyone even realizing that we have a one world government. Just like they did with the corporate media. If you really think about it, no one realized that the corporate media was controlled by the same entity. That all the news stories that come out of these outlets, they're all created and distributed to these agencies, and then they're sent out. There's no investigative reporting or anything like that. So they're completely controlled. The currency is controlled by the same system. And now they want to control the entire world covertly, and the governments will lose their sovereignty. This is what we see happening right now. And once this is done, it's going to be very difficult for each and every country. Because think about it. Right now, the central banks do have the power of putting these countries into debt. But the countries still have the power to say, you know something, we don't want the central bankers here anymore. Iceland did it. They threw their bankers in jail. They took control of their banking system. Actually, Russia has taken control of their central bank system. And we can see right now the central bankers, the private Western central bankers, they don't want this to happen. They don't want you to see that once you get rid of them, your country prospers. Compared to when the private Western central bank runs your country goes further and further into debt. Because that's the way their system is designed. It's not meant to help the people, it's meant to help themselves. And we need to stop this right at this point. We're at a fork in the road. We have one road that we can take, which is freedom, prosperity, living a good life. And then we have this other road right now, which is controlled by the central bankers, controlled by the elite, the neocons. They're trying to push their agenda, their goal. And if we do nothing and we head down that road, we're done. So we're at a point, and I'm not just talking about the United States, I'm talking about Canada, Australia, Europe, UK, that we need to start as a people. We need to start to make a decision. What are we going to do? And we all need to think about what is happening right now. We see that the Intercept, they came across this leaked catalog. It's a confidential 120-page catalog of spy equipment originating from the British defense firm Cobham and circulated to the U.S. law enforcement. And what it's about, it's allowing the U.S. to obtain a vast array of military spy gear. Now, what we see here is that the systems that the local police are getting, they will build these surveillance systems that will not be targeted just to a small group. It will be mass surveillance. That means everyone can be heard, everyone can be seen. And if you think about it, to the movie V for Vendetta, if you haven't seen it, you should see that movie. They had this van that drove around the town, and they were listening in to everyone's conversation. And their system would pick up keywords, and they would hone in on that conversation. So we can see the same thing is happening. And you have to remember, from the leaked documents of George Soros, we see that they're trying to federalize the local police. Once they federalize the local police, they will control each town. When they control each town, there will be mass surveillance. Remember, these individuals that are looking to control the people of each country, they want to know what everyone is up to because they're very worried. They like to keep their control. And at the same time, they need to get rid of everyone's rights. They want everyone to have privileges. They don't want people to have rights that you're born with, because privileges can be taken away. Rights cannot be taken away. You're born with them. And we can see right now, this is their main objective, because when this system comes down, they're going to restart it. They're going to reset. They're going to go through a transition. And you're going to see these individuals try to remove the rights of the people. They're going to use some type of explanation of why we need to do this at this point. They might do this with events. They might explain that it's for our best interest, it's for security. But whatever they're going to do, they're going to try to do this. They're going to try to rewrite the Constitution, which they've been trying to do for many years. And once they are allowed by the people to do this, the country is doomed at that point. Now we see France and Germany, they're trying to revive the Ukraine talks because they see what's happening in Ukraine right now. Kiev right now is using new silence regime for war preparations. They're bringing more military assets to the front lines. They're getting prepared for an offensive. The U.S. has already said they already have plans for a Russian invasion. So which means and tells us is that they're preparing for a false flag. And they're hoping Russia takes the bait. Now out in Syria, we see Washington has endorsed Turkey's Euphrates Shield. Turkey right now is allegedly bombing the Islamic State, which we know they're not, because the Islamic State is allowed to leave the area. Turkey just moves in and says, yes, we've captured this area. They're firing against the Kurds. They're pushing them back to the eastern section of the country. And we can see right now that Turkey is playing both sides. Playing with the economic side with Russia, playing with the United States on the war angle. And at this point, we still have not seen Turkey close the borders. Actually, Turkey is going deeper and deeper into Syria. Now, they don't need to do all of this to stop the flow of terrorism. They invaded a sovereign country. They brought tanks in, troops. The United States has invaded a sovereign country, built bases in this country. And we're getting to the point right now where the United States, the coalition forces, they're getting ready to make their move. Now, there are talks still going on between Russia and the United States. Russia is trying to convince the United States, listen, let's work together in Syria, let's get rid of terrorism. But we can see at this point, they might work together to get rid of the Islamic State because that terrorist group is doomed. The United States, as we know, will not allow Russia to touch Al-Qaeda or their newly named terrorist group. Now, they might say, here's Al-Qaeda, but you can't touch the newly renamed terrorist group. So the U.S., they're stuck in Syria right now. Russia, Syria, they actually have the edge. They have taken a lot of the land back from the Islamic State, and they're pushing further and further into Aleppo. And the situation in Syria is not going well for the United States. You have to remember, the United States has been in Syria now for, 7 years or so? 8 years or so? And they haven't made any headway in this area. They started to, but their plan was to go into Iran. And the reason for all of this was to continually prop up the petrodollar. And the petrodollar right now, well, it's under threat because the rest of the countries, the people are rising up. And this is making it very difficult for the United States. And this is why it's a race against time right now. Because the situation here in the United States is getting worse and worse because the economy is barely getting by. It's on life support. And they know this. This is why you see everything happening at once. And as we move into this election period, I believe all indicators are pointing to this, that the situation is going to be put into overdrive, where we're going to be seeing things that are going to shock many of the people. And I'm not just talking about the economic collapse. I'm talking about them bringing the system down. And we'll watch the indicators to see if they get a green light for the go-ahead to do this. But we're starting to see that they're prepared, ready for this next event. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.